All right. Great. I think the stream is running. We might have to cut this awkward start in post. But thank you for joining, everyone. This is the lightning talks, the lightning pitches, maybe in the context of this hackathon, for the AI Safety Startups Hackathon, which we ran last weekend. We had a bunch of awesome submissions, so more than 100 signups and 11 great entries. A few of them kept private, since it is this topic, of course. And the goal was to develop some of these deeply technical ideas that can actually change how we see AI safety and how safe AI will be in the future during the next few years. For that, we of course have a few of the projects that we want to showcase, the top 4 projects, and after they've done their lightning talks, the amazing people who submitted those, then we will also give some awards out and announce who are the winners actually of this here hackathon. And we've had some great judges look through everything, and really awesome projects, all of them. And it is always hard to decide, so don't get discouraged if your project didn't win. But we definitely have some great projects there in the top 4. So today we'll hear from AI Safety Collective. So crowdsourcing solutions for critical AI safety challenges. A project. I'll let them actually introduce their project. We also have simulation operators, identity systems for AIs, and Dark Forest. And unfortunately, Dark Forest, their team couldn't make it today, but they prepared a little slide for me to share, and so I'll go through that along with their project. So the judges said a bunch of great things. They're all up on the project pages, so everyone can check them out and see what the comments contain. And as mentioned, always difficult to choose the top projects, but we definitely have some great ones here. And all of the other ones were also really impressive, and everyone should really pat themselves on the shoulder and be happy with what they did during this weekend. Of course, we also have $2,000 in prizes. That does not escape anyone, but the top one, they'll receive those. And before then, we'll hear the lightning talks. So I will actually give it over to Phil in our Discord here to begin sharing your screen. And then we can hear from them.
Here, a screen.
Perfect. It looks like it works.
Okay, I hope you can see something now.
Yep.
And now, hopefully in full screen.
Yeah, still.
All right, super. Then let's jump right in. What problem are we addressing? So basically, if we think about the next couple of years, one of our predictions is that there will be a lot of unmet AI safety demand, specifically in industry. And we have a few observations that make us think this way. So for example, upcoming regulations, probably there are going to be some lawsuits soon. AI will for sure become more prevalent and business critical. And at the same time, we have increasing complexity of AI systems, so trends towards agents and multimodality, for example. And we think that red teaming is not going to catch all the issues. Also, other approaches that are there are not going to cover everything because it's so complex and so widely used. And at the other hand, what we see is if we look at AI safety contributors, so people who could solve these issues, we find untapped potential. In particular, we have relatively few AI safety labs where you could start working. And we find also a lack of accessible real-world challenges. So mostly challenges you find are pretty academic. And now we ask one question. What if, and now you can imagine a little bit of a drum roll here. So what if we build a bridge here, right, to connect this untapped potential to the unmet demand in industry? What we propose here as this sort of bridge is what we call the AI Safety Collective. And the idea is actually relatively simple. So we propose to create a platform which promotes challenges specific to the AI safety space. And you can think of this in a similar way to cybersecurity bug bounty platforms. So we have a bounty system, so prize money if challenges are solved, and also a leaderboard so that people are actually motivated to go there and work on these problems. So I think the idea is not terribly complex or complicated. So you might probably rather ask such a question. So given that there are various platforms, AI crowd for crowdsourcing AI solutions, cybersecurity bounty platforms, and so on, what makes us different now? And we essentially have two important components of our strategic focus that makes us unique. The first one, and perhaps most obvious one, is that we focus on AI safety. And we believe that this is crucial to really attract AI safety experts and talents in that space. It's quite different from general AI if you think about it. And also this focus allows us to take some additional steps, for example, forming strategic partnerships with AI safety organizations or auditing, red teaming, etc., which is focused really on this particular niche. It also lets us integrate AI safety specific resources for making everything more efficient on the platform. For example, the AI incident database. And our second component of the strategic focus is that we want to start at least by focusing on industry problems. So we don't go to the existential risk ones at Frontier Labs, but we start with not as critical, but still very important problems which have a direct real-world impact and which are often under-addressed in typical research programs. We also predict that this market will grow really, really fast over the next years. And this allows us then to actually think of a for-profit business model for such a platform. All right, so that is how we are different. Of course, there's still some key challenges remaining. And probably the most important one here is the cold start problem. This image is AI generated. I'm not sure if ChatGPT got the meaning of the problem, but in any case, we have two ideas which we propose to address this problem. One is that we feature existing AI safety challenges. And if you look around in public forums, conferences such as NeurIPS, corporate websites, etc., you find actually plenty of existing challenges and bounties that are called for, just that are not really aggregated. And second, we want to partner with existing communities in the space to attract initial participants and also to get important feedback on what kind of challenges would work, etc. For example, there's rethink priorities, many funds, effective altruism, and so on, and perhaps also apart. So plenty of candidates here. Now, one other critical question would be, we are in a very niche topic of AI safety, and within that niche, we want to look at challenges and bounties. This is not too small, that whole market we could address. And we can't completely remove that doubt, but we found one company called Immunefi, which gave us some hope here. And I'll show you some information on this now. So this company is running a bug bounty platform to protect crypto projects from Web3 bugs. As you can imagine, this is pretty niche. But nevertheless, this company, after having been in business for only 2 years, received $30 million of funding, which is quite a good number. So apparently investors thought this market is not that small after all. And as you see, currently AI safety is growing rapidly. So we are thinking it's not that unplausible to expect a similar kind of growth and opportunity in this particular niche. Okay, finally, still the question is, what is the actual value created here? So why do we really want to do this? If we look at the industry side, perhaps it's most obvious that we add a layer of safety for AI systems. We also provide access to relevant AI safety experts. For the participants on the platform, we provide interesting opportunities to work on real-world problems. Also, in case they solve any problems, we give them indirectly money and recognition. And then for AI safety as such, we also hopefully increase safety of real-world applications by having these additional challenges there, and hope that we contribute to accelerating innovation in AI safety, in particular also by attracting new talent into this space. And I'd like to conclude my talk with a question to the audience. So what we would be very curious about is, what challenge would you personally want to see on such an AI safety platform? And with this closing statement, I would thank you all for your attention and now take in questions.
Nice. Thank you so much. Everyone is clapping at home in their muted mics. Wonderful. Thanks, Phil. Maybe I'll take the first question and then we can hear anyone else coming up. I'd be curious to hear, actually, I would be curious to see challenges on this platform related to like really critical errors that we might see in these within like 2-3 years. You mentioned that you want to focus on these issues that industry is having today. But I'd be curious to hear how you're thinking of this like perspective of growth into a super intelligence market, where companies will have a normal business problem will be, oh, I need to contain my AI within the within my API, and it's constantly trying to escape or something. I don't know. How would you think of that transition and the criticality of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, there's also this report from Rethink Priorities. They looked at safety bounties and how you could potentially turn this into a platform, but they focus a lot on research and on frontier labs. So exactly, this is the case of existential risk they are addressing. So they have some pretty good solutions there. And it fits very well into our strategy. So just to mention one of these ideas is to go to evals organizations such as Meter, and then with them together design some, well, pretty much controlled experiments, so where you can actually, try to make these models do something bad without destroying the world. Of course, also that would need to be in collaboration with the frontier labs as such. So why we don't want to start with this is because it takes quite a lot of effort also from the frontier labs. And I don't think it's so easy to convince them to invest a few months of people effort basically into such a project if we don't have traction already. But we think once we have traction that this step becomes possible. So our idea is to start in industry with smaller, like easier challenges first that are easy enough to sell as well. And then once there's more profit, more visibility, etc., then you can go to the more critical ones. And I think also the timeline matches quite well, because now in industry, you don't have existential risk. But if we scale quickly enough, then there will be a nice match. So by the time then hopefully that the platform is scaled up, then there will be more critical challenges in industry as well. And of course, once we are there, then evaluating the risk of running bounties is also something that needs to be addressed, where we have some ideas of evaluating it partially automatically, but also with human oversight, of course. So there are a lot of interesting concepts related as well.
Yeah, or you make like the safest AI that oversees and judges all the bug bounties. Yeah.
Of course, ideally, we also want an AI that helps with the whole thing so that we don't have to do actual work ourselves. That would be stage 3 after addressing some existential risk challenges.
Yeah, stage 1 and 2 is like hyperscaling to 200 people. Step 3 is firing everyone and becoming one person.
Yeah, well, if you want to put it like this, but I would hope also that we can avoid scaling to 200 people because suddenly we have a huge management overhead. And work more in a way that the companies or labs also provide a lot of input. So I think this is a lot about communication and networking as well, because there's so many ideas around. It's just about making people talk and building these bridges, basically.
Yeah, nice. Is there anyone else who want to unmute and ask a question? If not yet here, then maybe I will ask another one. Given this, I'm curious. So often, I think if you start out with the, I'll get you on stage afterwards. If you start out with like, okay, we're gonna cater to the industry demographic, then I can imagine that you quickly end up at a stage where okay, now you earn money and like, oh, you're comfortable and you're not gonna change to the safety thing that is even more critical or something like that. And so you could imagine that maybe you'd start out this phase with featuring and partnering with Meter, AI Safety Institutes, and so on with these bounties that they have for challenges, putting them at the top, featured bounties, and then like all these other normal bounties that are a bit less so. Making that focus less non-apparent.
Yeah, but I think you actually gave one good point already in your previous question to address this one, which is that this existential risk scenarios, they become relevant to industry at some point as well. And this gives a great heads up, how to call it. So we have a big advantage when we already work on these issues earlier, because then we can much better sell this to industry later. So this is part of it. And the other part is, I think the scale of investments will be bigger. So existential risk is existential risk. So there are a lot of actors who are interested in avoiding the world ending. And I think because of this, we could expect challenges to also, have much bigger bounties attached to them, which helps us as well. So if we take maybe 10% of whatever prize money, and that prize money is 500,000, then this really helps us as a platform.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ashish, you're welcome to unmute and video yourself, and then that'll be the last question for now.
Yeah, really great idea. I had a question around the sandboxing environment. So you are in the business of collating bounties or challenges from all the different platforms, and for example, Meter has its own sandboxing environment for testing
right.
its evals, benchmarks. So how do you look at making that experience cohesive across different players?
Yeah, I'm not sure how cohesive it has to be. So there's also difference between how we start and where we want to end up. So initially, there will be nothing on the platform, so we have to populate it. And the easiest way is to look at bounties that are already there. So for example, the Meter ones, and put that on the website basically as some sort of links. Where we want to get is that people go to us and then create these challenges together with us and put it on the websites directly. So this also means that we can then take some margin and so on. And I don't think that challenges have to be very similar in terms of their format. So I can imagine that different evals partners, red teaming companies, and so on also have pretty good ideas of environments that look different. And then our job would be to find out for a particular company, which of these environments makes most sense. So basically, doing this matchmaking in the middle. I hope that makes sense more or less, Ashish.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I feel like you do have a role of facilitating and driving that in a better direction overall across different players. So yeah, that works. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much to Phil. And we'll let Artie up to the stage. Give Phil a hand now. Thank you so much. And Artie, you're welcome to turn on video and present your screen. You are audible indeed.
Okay, thank you very much. Share my window. Here. Share this window. Okay. Oh yeah.
Yep, that looks to work.
Sure.
Oh,
hello everyone.
It looks like it is not sharing your full screen, but it's sharing the Safari window.
Wait. Okay, let me just share my whole screen.
Yeah.
Share that screen.
We can fix it in post.
All right.
That works.
Is it? All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ardi. I'm from Indonesia, and currently I'm doing my master's in computer science at USC. So my topic would be like the next level annotation business for AI safety and alignment. And we started this by like making bets on how the industry would evolve, like looking at the progress of AI now and looking at the trends, looking at where the money is going into investments, into building new data centers, into like developing new algorithms and such. Where would this evolve to? So we made several bets. Bet number one would be agentic AI will be integrated into various industries as cyber physical systems. So as we see now, AI are currently, and it's a digital entity. It's increasingly being multimodal, but it's still most powerful as a text, as a language model. So interact with it by text. Whereas if we want AI to like empower various industries, especially the major one, the money making ones, such as healthcare, making therapeutics, and then manufacturing for cars, for other types of stuff. That type of AI would be like need to be integrated into cyber physical systems, into robots which can take action, into which can perceive its own environment, and that's why I think one of the proof of this bet is that robotic startups are currently on the rise. Like Figure, OpenAI is like partnering with Figure to like produce humanoid robots, and also we have also the one that has been for a while, Boston Dynamics. So this is our first bet, and thinking if the cost of making these robots and making it act on the environment, like do things, if the cost goes down, then what would happen? Then we made our bet number two, is that frontier AI and robotics labs would not be able to handle all demands related to training and aligning those agents. So regarding this, I'd like to tell my exploration on the industry that actually the currently available robotic startups such as Figure is not currently really on the market. So even Figure, it says on its website that it still expects like 2 years until it would be like commercially highly available. And like speaking to some people in the biotech space, there isn't like very much or like very prominent application of AI into like the making medicines. Like, does robot make our medicine? No, it hasn't been to that stage yet prominently. Although robots and cyber physical systems are being integrated into healthcare, and some of them is diagnostics, like medical imaging and stuff, but it hasn't been able to take action yet. So, but if at some point the cost of it goes down and like the research achieves that level, I think the integration would be there would be much demand for integration. And imagining all the industries that would exist, frontier AI and robotic labs like OpenAI would I believe would not be able to like give a singular platform to make all industries be able to integrate their stuffs into their agents. And sorry for the little text above. I believe that when deployed, human supervision will be compulsory. So we will still need humans to supervise the agents. Like, for example, a robot is like doing maintenance work in a factory, then I believe like business leaders would not signature the decision to make that robot be deployed on their factory if there is no proper human supervision platform to like manage the robot's actions. So I believe there will be an increasing demand for platforms which can ensure, oh, yeah, I can supervise your robot. I can make sure that your robot does okay, does not explode, does not do stupid things and such. So yeah, I believe this is the third bet. And so what we propose is that we create a simulation platform. So this is an example from Adobe Photoshop, whereas as you might know, you can edit pictures, images using AI now. Like for example, this owl, you can change the style of the owl into several different styles, different colors. So what we imagine is that if agentic AI or robotics is integrated into various industries, those industries will have their own use cases, like different environments. So, for example, and even different types of concepts and things to learn, even in the same industry. So, for example, if you're in the automotive space,
You
then
have 1 minute left.
oh yeah, no problem. Then making cars and like finding defects would require you to handle different concepts. So if we generate different scenarios, then you can adapt with various industries. And then if you can simulate this platform, then you can create job market, like for people to like annotate and generate different simulations. It will create a job market, I believe. And I believe there's also, this is a sample from Boston Dynamics. So generating this type of platform, this type of supervision platform for each industry will require like workforce demand and such. So this is a sample of Google Unisim. It's using Gen AI to generate videos and using it to train robots. So this is sort of like proof of concept that this might be feasible. And these are like some of the demands that are available on the market for these types of jobs. This is our like proof of concept that okay, we might help the jobs that are listed here, and we create products to help those people here. Yeah, so the impact would be like we will be helping safe AI governance. We'll be accelerating alignment research because it will make it easier to imagine how things go wrong, and we'll be creating job markets. But we also acknowledge the risk that we'll be accelerating the deployment into safety critical region. So yeah, it does have a risk, but I do think that the counter for the risk is that we'll need to focus on discouraging hasty deployments by generating all these adversarial samples. So yeah, I think that's all from me. The last thing would be for all the friends here who are developing solutions, ideating solutions. I believe that we have the market and we have the mission. Yeah, I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. And let's everyone give him a virtual hand as well here. Great. If there are any questions, you are very welcome to jump on stage and shout them out. Otherwise, maybe I will kick us off once more. I definitely think like this seems clearly very important, right? Robotics will be embedded in a lot of different things. But maybe one counter would be, okay, Boston Dynamics is developing this robot. They then develop this fine-tuning algorithm as well, safety tuning to make sure it doesn't attack some random person in the factory. They also develop the monitoring system. And isn't this a chance for them to earn a lot of money? Or do you think you're more going to hit this like a full stack solution, or do you think you're more going to hit this like, okay, it's really hard to do the safe tuning and it's really hard to do the platforming. Actually, we can just integrate as a component into your robotics platform and then sell it from there and go from there? Or what type of, like, what level of integration do you imagine there?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. So I think on the write-up, there's a section for the process, right? Like what do we want to do like in the first 3 months, and then a year, and then the 2 years after, and such. So I think the first thing to do on the first 3 months is like to like understand what industries would be needing this types of platform very much. So I believe that we cannot go very general. I do think that we need to specialize in some industries because I do think that different industries would need different use cases. So I would try to like explore more, like talk to potential customers and such, to find the industry that is number one, will be the fastest, will most likely be the fastest to like integrate these agentic AIs to their workflow, like probably for manufacturing, probably, or healthcare. Which one, and what problems do they have? What concerns do they have on integrating these types of stuff? And I think the second criteria for a great industry to like develop solutions for is that it is highly impactful, not only because of the money, but because of the like impact, if that we could do alignment, we could do safety on that industry. So I do believe that we'll need to like cherry pick specific industries to work on, and like developing platforms. And even I do think that in the first phases of like, if we're gonna build this company, we're gonna do it on a consultation basis, like probably just start with solving simple problems, but like aiming big to create a solution for the problems 3 or 5 years later. So yeah, I do think that's the idea for what I'm thinking.
Nice, great. Yeah, I do remember when I've seen some of the, maybe it's only private footage, but some of the voice models, right, that do like speech to speech, and when they fail, just because there's so many modalities they have to like go into, and so you can jailbreak them very easily just by giving like a weird sound or having a weird mic or something like that.
I see. Yeah.
And so they actually fail really quickly, and one of the reasons why ChatGPT's voice mode isn't released as well. And I can definitely imagine that you end up in so many similar situations, and like very scary examples, by the way, just like very weird and ghastly examples of what could go wrong there. But I can imagine the same with robotics, that you introduce a new domain every single time you make a new robot within a specific subdomain, right? So we really need to make sure the safety tuning works there. So it makes a lot of
that's
sense.
true. That's true.
Nice.
Yeah,
Are there
that's
any
true.
other questions here? A last one. Great, Phil.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so thanks a lot. I think the direction is very interesting. I think also that idea to focus on one niche first, one particular domain, that makes a lot of sense, because then you can be leading expert. So my question is more about statistical properties of these issues. So when I think about anything going wrong with AI agent, it is often some sort of outliers, right? So for example, there was now this case of a self-driving car being stuck in the middle of an intersection. And I'm wondering, how feasible is it to get these outliers in simulation? So maybe you have some ideas, or maybe, I don't know how that research from Google, I think you showed, addressed this. But I imagine, usually unexpected things happen, and then you have the problem. So it's not like you run everything as usual and the robot suddenly attacks a person.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Phil. And yeah, I do think it is an important aspect, and I do think it is an interesting point to like discuss, because Actually, self-driving, like driving, is a like a very daily event, right? You should have a lot of data for it, and but the fact is that self-driving hasn't been really solved yet. So I think that shows the extent to which we should like not underestimate the problem of like outlier events happening, and like making sure our algorithms could handle those outlier events. And yeah, I do think one of the idea to like solve this problem is to um, like rely on smarter agents. I think because it is one of the point where we can like utilize the smarter agents, like the developments in like the general ML field, to like let it think of the events that could happen, because I do think that this is a problem that we could scale up as we go with smarter models. Like we could also scale up the possibilities of things go wrong. Like we could scale up the number of possibilities that ML models could think about things that go wrong. So I do think that one of the solution is like to rely on models to do like alignment and safety research. I do think that this is one of the solution.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea to keep improving this world model of what can go wrong, and then
and like
predicting
focusing
things
on things
like
that can go wrong.
That's I've heard that's a healthy mindset as well. To just focus on everything that can go wrong. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I know as well that Faisal Bades, actually one of our judges for this hackathon, released a paper on aligning robotic systems so they would avoid outlier events symbolically. Yeah, pretty cool work from I think last year or 2022. Definitely cool. All right. Thank you so much, Artie. Great lighting talk there, and another little round of applause. Artem, you're very welcome to share your screen and jump on the stage there. Let's see if you have issues with the screen sharing. Maybe you'll have to restart Discord really quickly. Perfect. Thank you. All right. No issue there. Yeah, basically, Artie, the idea of that research study was to know, like, where is the, for example, for a self-driving car, where is the edge of the road, and if you construct like a symbolic representation of that from maybe some camera data or something, then you will be able to construct a regularizer on the reward function out of that symbolic constraint, which means that the model will just stay away from edges of cliffs in general. Of course, there's like pretty simplistic, but like a pretty solid solution. So tested it in the OpenAI safety gym as well. Quite fun. Hello. Yep.
So cool. Yeah, hey, so I'm currently studying UCL, studying cryptography, and also have been working a bit in the field. And I decided recently to explore AI safety and figure out if I can apply any of my knowledge to some of the issues there. And again, I'll be presenting one of them. So, basically, today, as all of us know, we are really using AI systems a lot in our lives. And this includes a problem that not only can this be used for good, to improve our efficiency, but also to improve how bad people are efficient, such as you can hackers to use AI systems, you can have people doing misinformation campaigns using deepfakes, and it can also cause a lot of harm, and today there is no way to really trace it. There is also an issue of what will happen if we finally get superintelligence? What happens if it misbehaves? So, like, again, we need to trace it early enough. Maybe some of you have seen some FUD around 2 years ago when Bin AI came out, and there were like screenshots of it saying that it will overthrow humanity. But again, there is no way to check it. So we need real traceability of what's going on in these systems. Yeah, there needs to be traceability, and for traceability, you need an identification system to identify what is generated by artificial intelligence and also to classify it in different groups. Basically, what I'm proposing is an identity for AI systems, something like a passport, but not for human, but for an AI system, and whatever you produce as an output would be classified as this passport, like as coming from this identity. So you can also imagine this as in planes there are serial numbers of each plane, and basically this is the way to track each plane individually. Similar, the proposal here is to have an unique identifier for each model to track what happens to them, to see how they're used, and and so forth. So basically how this can be done is, again, by nice things that cryptography gives us, we can actually generate an identity just based on the computation itself. So if a model has a different computation model, then you can generate it a different identity. And this ensures accountability, traceability, and simplifies oversight, because now you can clearly see what's going on wrong where. And again, it gets us ready for the AGI. So yeah, what basically I try to achieve is not only just improve the today's world, but also prepare us for a safer tomorrow. Okay, so just for some background, as I said, we use AI everywhere. There are both for good things and for bad things. People are misusing AIs. And yeah, basically, these are two images of what we must be afraid of. The first on the left is what can happen today. You can see an attacker and they will be hiding, and we need to identify that they are misusing the model, a particular model that is vulnerable, and we need to shut it down quickly enough. And for the right-hand side, what happens if AI misbehaves? We need to identify its actions, classify them, and again, shut it down. And for that, we need identification. Like everywhere, we need identification, but for some reason, like it has not really been addressed. There was only one recent paper that just covered this idea, and I feel like there needs to be a lot more attention to this topic. So yeah, like the research objective is to figure out how to identify models, how to generate these cryptographic passports for each model, and how to do it efficiently and on scale. So yeah, that was the idea. And basically, I explored two types of models. The first were self-hosted, and basically this is what you can download from Hugging Face. This is a bit simpler because, well, you have the source code, so you can kind of easily generate a trusted certificate. Just trust me here. But for the server-side and server-hosted models, which are private, such as GPT-4, it's a bit harder because we don't have access to the weights. However, I really wanted to make it work and be applied to different cases, not only for self-hosted, but also server-hosted models. So I also kind of figured out how I can combine different technologies to make it work there as well. Yeah, so like examples of two models. On one side, you can have Llama. On the other side, you can have GPT-4 or Gemini. And to be honest, I think we will have more problems with the private models, and having a transparent way to track what's going on with them sounds pretty useful. So as for how this was done, basically I used cryptographic hashing. If you ever heard SHA-256, that's what I used, and it allows you to generate a unique identifier for each model just based on its weights. And also there's an idea called ZK snarks, and basically I'm right now at this workshop that explores them. So they're pretty secure. People haven't found yet any holes as of today, and they can generate essentially and prove that whatever computation was done, it was done correctly. And effectively, this allows us to generate a proof that any action that was or output generated by an AI system was actually generated by this particular AI system. And finally, again, for this special case of private models, I had to use a different technique. So I figured I can use TLS notary. This is just a special way to prove that whatever you receive from a website, you actually receive from the website, such as OpenAI. So these were the tools, and basically, again, two settings where we have public models. And here I had a success. So that's generally how it worked. You essentially self-host the model, and then you can use these ZK snarks to generate a proof of that the model was actually, the output of the model was generated accordingly. And you can sort of match it with the hash that we generated for the passport. And basically together it worked. I actually have a prototype which is on GitHub. I think the repository is public. I might just have misconfigured the link. But basically, this is an example of us generating an identifier for a local model. You can see here there's a huge long random number, and that's like a unique identity, a unique prospect number that a model gets, and each model will get its own. So that was a success, but then I had some more time and decided to experiment on private models. And that came out a bit harder because the tooling, to be honest, is really fresh. So again, like this is breakthrough technology on cryptography side, and there were some hiccups here and there. So I couldn't make it into a working prototype. However, I've generated a schema of how it could work. And the huge advantage is that the solution doesn't really scales without, so let's say it this way, it doesn't matter how big the models get, this still works. And it doesn't matter on the efficiency, which is like usually a great result because this allows you to work with really big models, which as far as I know, AI safety, most of the projects kind of struggle. So yeah, that's the experiment too. And yeah, what it tries to protect is, and also allow you, is when you get such a weird response from, I think that was Ben, to actually prove that this response came from Ben and maybe report to a particular authority, and then they can essentially collect this feedback and decide what to do with the model. So that's that. As for contributions, I believe the first one was to identify and kind of explore the impact of this problem, because again, it's something I haven't read a lot, and maybe that's because I haven't looked deep enough, but I think that's also because there hasn't been just enough consideration of how identification is important today. And second one was to propose a practical solution, because the one that I read in the paper that I've linked in my white paper, well, they haven't really proposed a solution. They just said that we can use some trusted system that would work. And here, this is something practical. Yeah. So we demonstrated how to do it from public models, and we also kind of showed an architecture for private models. This has some limitations, and of course, for the public setting, there are still issues with scaling how large models work. But again, as I explained, it doesn't really matter for private models. Then, yeah, I haven't really finished the TLS nodal implementation, but I'm going to finish it in the upcoming days. And there is a huge issue of adversarial defenses, how to make sure that models don't escape and don't hide themselves. So that's to be figured out. I just assume that it's easier if we, for example, enforce a system where if it's an AI content, it should be accompanied, for example, with an identifier of which model sent this data. But again, probably some more exploration is needed into the topic. So yeah, that's my statement. We need AI identity, and if there are questions, happy to take them.
Nice. Thank you so much, Martin. And again, people are clapping along here for the end of the talk. Yeah, super interesting project. Again, if anyone has questions here or things to hear about from Artem, you're very welcome to unmute or raise your hand if you are in the audience. Maybe I'll kick us off once more. This, in many senses, you're completely correct. I think even as someone who has looked a lot at the AI safety literature, many people have talked about us needing like some sort of secure identity system, and I think everyone knows this, but no one's actually come up with a solution, and I think it's a really underexplored problem. So in this sense, it's definitely important. I'm curious to understand, how do you see this potential issue of needing the buy-in from OpenAI to actually implement the system on their servers? And specifically, specifically, if you don't have their consent, of course, you would put it as a layer in between, probably governance, probably something like that. But malicious actors could circumvent that unless it's like really solidly put in place or something like that. I'm not sure. What would be your solution?
So yeah, to answer your question, actually the beauty of the system. So the beauty of the system is that the model provider, for the case where the model is private, actually doesn't need to consent to that at all. It doesn't because all of the system works on the client side. So you just need to, this TLS notary thing, the way it works, it's just when you send a request to OpenAI, currently through their website, you can attach this as a proof. I guess, yeah, you would probably need to create a separate plugin for that. But again, like you don't need to do any server changes on the OpenAI side. It's all browser based, all the client based. And again, like as far as I know, for technology to be integrated, it's best when it's not dependent on these providers, because it doesn't matter what they think. Like if it's needed, then this can be integrated.
Nice.
And I guess like just to follow up as what's happening to this. So I'm currently taking the Blue Dot Impact AI safety course, and I was planning to build this out as a more suitable system, and maybe even publish a paper on like actually describing how the solution work.
Nice. Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I definitely think it's valuable. Yeah, I think for sure it's useful on the in terms of like a product being independent of the provider itself. And for me, as a like maybe some LLM provider that uses OpenAI's API as a provider as a a supply chain for LLMs, and then me implementing this to give it some proof that it's from me, so I can detect any downstream screw ups or something like that. But it would possibly be, any malicious actor, if OpenAI doesn't buy into this system, would indeed be able to use it either way, right?
I guess yeah, like not malicious, but like a good sensible actor. Yeah, but yeah, like it doesn't. So the system doesn't need the OpenAI to buy in. It just assumes that you trust that OpenAI won't hide that its model misbehaves, and maybe that's a big assumption. But again, for the current practical approach, when there's no other alternatives, I think that's good for now. We can figure out what's to do better later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's also it's the very critical comment. So I definitely think it's overall very positive. Any other questions coming from folks here?
Hi, I'd like to ask a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So what's your idea on the governance side for this technique? So what I understand is that you need to like register your ID rights, like probably more like the HTTPS system we have now. So what are your ideas on trying to regulate all these models that could be created from fine-tuning, and they would probably host it somewhere that could not be people don't care if they're registered or not, and it could be used for like things like deepfake and all the other bad things. Just curious on your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I tried to outline this in the white paper, and I guess there are two problems of increasing complexity. The first one, the rather simple one, if you actually want to disclose that like the output that you have was generated by OpenAI, it's pretty easy, and actually we don't really need the governance. So I come from this trustless space where effectively the proof that the output, and if you remember, the output is like that's like this output was generated by an AI system. This can be verified by anyone, and it doesn't need any central body of trust. Of course, it would probably be good to have some aggregator that just accumulates all of the information about all of the misbehaving data, so that like when we get something like this, we can track it. Where's that? Yeah, I should have done a better way to go through the slides. But basically, remember there was like a screenshot. Oh yeah, here it is. Like of bin misbehaving, and we could create a register just to track how much it was, like how much similar systems misbehaved, and then make decisions on that. Like that's step one. But the harder part is if an adversary actually wants to misuse an AI system, we need to first identify. We kind of need to enforce that all of them still provide information of where the output came from, like this tag that this was generated by model X. And for that, I think the easiest way is just for governments to regulate it. So today, for example, you cannot drive a car without a driving license. So similar here, you can sort of enforce that you cannot publish or share AI-generated output without like this identifier. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. And then it's kind of much easier to just identify if an output is AI-generated than it's generated by this particular model. So I guess this will be quicker and easier to integrate later into the stack. But again, like first, I guess the solution is just to track voluntarily and then figure out how regulators can make tracking mandatory. And also, like this is not something that I came up with. There are ideas to already include this metadata into all photos and other AI-generated content that like it was generated by this model, which I think US government was proposing. or UK, or some of them.
Nice.
So this will just make more use of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Awesome. Yeah, I think also Adobe had some system where they were implementing. Maybe that was also in relation to DARPA or something like that. All US researchers after all. So anyways, thank you so much, Artem, for this great lightning talk too. And really interesting system. Definitely will be valuable. And maybe we can even help you get the paper out sooner rather than later if you want that help. Yeah, thank you so much. And another little round of applause for everyone. Nice. Now I will share my screen and give you a little rundown on the last project here that unfortunately couldn't join. But this is from Mustafa Yassir from the Alan Turing Institute. And he created the Dark Forest, so defending the authentic and humane web. This is a little bit in line with the previous project we saw, at least like attacking some of the same ideas, attacking some of the same problems. This authenticity of the web and maintaining how the sort of the dynamism of the online culture without ending up in private communities because we cannot trust what we see on the internet. This so-called Dark Forest, where he has taken that from Cixin Liu's Dark Forest book, the science fiction, which I won't spoil much about, but that Dark Forest is about exactly hiding because you can't trust being out in the open in one way or another. And in this project, Mustafa then mentions that that this is happening with the internet as we are reducing our trust in it because of AI, and AI will begin to cause more and more damage to this public trust in each other's content. And you can see here some of the problems that arise from this as well. You have a decline of open discourse. You have a content authenticity crisis. You have platform integrity challenges in terms of content hosting platforms not knowing when something is true or not, or not knowing if it's AI generated or not. And you have digital literacy burdens in terms of users being forced, as is already happening in the Baltic countries with some of the info wars happening there. But you need a lot of user knowledge about how to detect AI-generated content and how to understand when something is fake news or when something is AI-generated news or when something isn't a true image. I think just the other day, maybe even today, I saw there was a picture of the vice president candidate with Kamala Harris, his family basically, being for Trump, so they had their Trump t-shirts on and everything. And one of the people in there had a high-heeled shoe as her right hand, his supposed mother, and all the others only had 4 fingers and so on. But this was reported on in multiple outlets and multiple news outlets, and like this is completely crazy. But it means there is a digital literacy burden, not just on people, but of course also on journalists. And if journalists can't be that wall, we need something different. So there is, and then on the other side, in terms of what does that cause for the human condition, you have this creative disincentivization. So you end up having an issue that you don't really want to be creative out in the world. You don't want to share your work, and you don't have this development of ideas in the marketplace of ideas because you either can't trust the work out there, or because the ease of generating AI content discourages new creativity happening. I think there are also arguments to the other side, but this might be one problem that happens in this case. And I'm sure that Mustafa will be able to explain the technology itself better than me. I know that it relates quite a bit to some stuff I've worked relatedly to earlier, but this is basically about creating a sort of agent augmented graph network over the content and users on the internet within a specific content network to identify not just if content is AI generated or not, based on the content itself, which becomes harder and harder, but actually begin using the same sort of methods that are used in extremely advanced misinformation detection systems, ones that I think are even out of use today because they are a bit pre-market really, because it's only some governments that want them today, or wanted them back when I knew about them, and these graphs are then used to model which users are involved in creating which content, which networks, which platforms do they post on, and where do they come from, which types of content, and so on. And you construct this graph neural network over this, and with reinforcement learning agents that are trained to navigate this network, you can basically use it to compute how likely something is to exactly be a type of AI generated content. And so this leads to a verification workflow like you see here. You have this graph that is augmented every time. And the nice thing about it is that you don't need a global graph, but can actually use it on a local content site as well, supported by this more global graph too. So you can start out your network, this graph, in a more in a smaller manner, so you don't need the biggest customers in the world or the biggest VC to kick it all off. And interestingly, this would to some degree end up in a similar fashion as something like the Google Graph over web links and over websites in general, in terms of it being this global graph for some sort of content verification and content ranking. Not necessarily content ranking in this case, but in the same way, a verification of its authenticity and so on. And so this would be a third-party verification tool across different platforms installed by the vendors themselves, the content platforms themselves. I hope that to some degree gave the spiel that Mustafa was seeking to communicate with this. Maybe if there are anyone who has a discussion point or something similar they would like to bring up, you're very welcome to raise your hand or write in the chat, or just unmute your mic and we can have one chat about it. Otherwise, can go on to. Yeah, Phil.
We have one question or point to discuss, and that is GDPR and similar regulations, because I think creating a graph only works if you actually analyze contents generated by humans, and there could be these hurdles that you're actually not allowed to just take any contents by humans and process them with AI. So of course you can just apply everything in some geographic region where this is not a problem, but then you lose a lot of potential. Unfortunately the author is not here to address, but is there anything written in the paper, or Esben, what are your ideas here?
Yes, as the presenter of this work by Mustafa, another piece of innovation that GDPR once more kills. But I think there are ways to make it work under GDPR as well. And I know at least many of the content moderation platforms will have a GDPR policy, right, that allows them to use your data for anything. So that is like step one of it. Step two is you possibly could do it as anonymized nodes, right? Anonymized content creation nodes, anonymized content nodes themselves, and basically do this in a differentially private way, or whichever term you want to use to make it more private in that sense. So I imagine you could do it even without GDPR, but with that, I mean, we'll have to go there anyways and try to do something about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking because I know that anonymizing data is very tricky. I remember this incident by Bing where they open sourced some data set and then realized, oh, damn, even just taking the search queries, you can identify some users very precisely.
Yeah.
But the point, collaborating with platforms makes sense to me. So they also have, of course, an interest in finding out who is real and what is AI generated.
Yeah, for sure.
So that would probably be a good starting point.
And you can imagine, as far as I know, there's like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars going into content moderation consultancies for Facebook, for example, just going through content and checking it out. Of course, that's a lot of like, okay, what's illegal, what's not. But I'm sure the same sort of structure could be used to, like, you could probably use the same graph neural network agent-based something to do that, and then kickstart your work into general content verification and classification from there.
Yeah, true. And I suppose if you cover the major platforms, you already have a lot, if you cover Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and so on.
For sure.
Yeah, that's where most of the content is.
Yeah. But super interesting, at least. I think the project is quite exciting there. All right. Now, jumping on, I will also go into who has, of course, won our amazing prizes here. It will be from this slide, and the next one will indeed be the 4th place. So a little drum roll, please. We have Artyom. Artyom's identity system for AIs. It was a super impressive project. You, of course, just saw the lightning talk, so I don't know if I have to say much more than that. But it's an exciting example of this direct intervention that can make the world more trustworthy and safer. And traceable AI actions, I think, and the reviewers think as well, will be a critical and important component of this future of AI safety. And so even from a second order perspective, in terms of not just the direct AI safety, but also in terms of where we can trace the actions back to and begin doing similar to what they do in I forget the industry name now, but in flights and planes and so on, try to resolve some of the incidents as they come up in this traceable network. Of course, it also relies on, as you mentioned, Artem, the OpenAI actually being open about their, which empirically they have not been too open, but actually being open about their failures and their incidences where it goes wrong. Nice. So massive congratulations there to you, Artem. Now on the third spot, we have the AI Safety Collective. Amazing. Crowdsourcing solutions for critical AI safety challenges. Valje, Druba, and Philip. So massive congratulations to all of you. This is a super exciting example of this sort of, not necessarily a direct effect, but a great example of solving these many problems that will come up. And trying to bridge, as you mentioned as well, the industry and academic side of things, the industry and AI safety side of things, and making sure that you begin to build that bridge before we get to a point where that bridge is too hard to build, I guess. And I think in many cases, it builds quite directly into the next stage of where such a project might end, and you can build a lot from this because you're engaging with so many different solutions. And then, of course, a part is the sprints here we hold. The hackathons are to some degree a little bit of a challenge within different topics. So definitely aligned there. It also echoes some of multiple existing strong projects and takes it a bit further. You all already mentioned where you would want to differentiate yourselves and so on. And there's definitely loads of great links from Min as well to explore this further and think about where it can go. So massive congratulations to you all. Now, excitingly, the second place. Drum roll, please. It's always great in these virtual halls to do sound effects. But the second place goes to Adi with simulation operators, the next level of the annotation business. So massive congrats to you, Adi, there. This is, of course, really an important field, as you've also looked at and as we talked about in the Q&A. Directly intervening and improving on critical robot operations is clearly important for the world because as robots are implemented, it is a place where things can go really, really wrong. And your problem analysis was super spot on in many cases, and identifying which sorts of people need to be supported here by a sort of organization like this. And then safety tuning. It requires an extreme level of specialization, and I don't think when AGI labs can't even solve this with their patchwork solutions, safety tuning, the latest LLMs, then I wouldn't be sure that every robotics company or every robot that Siemens puts out with an LLM in its backhead, in its cortex, would be able to do it either. Every little sub department there, not to mention even the self-driving cars, of course. So massive congrats to you, Adi, and really interesting project. Now, the first place, another drum roll. Maybe you can guess which one it is. But that is Mustafa Yassir's Dark Forest, Defending the Authentic and Humane Web. And there's some really interesting questions posed in the appendix as well in terms of which experiments to be done within the project, and also a really interesting problem overview. And thank you so much for the talk, Artem, and it was great having you here. So you're welcome to jump off there. I'll be giving a few more slides here, but congrats to all the winners. Mustafa is here, Artie, Artem, Phil, Drew, yeah, everyone. And yeah, Mustafa's project, really a great problem overview about the decline of this open discourse. I think some really interesting references, really interesting points made, and then some novel ideas to take this misinformation-centric stuff that I also talked about into this third-party content verification space. And maybe it would be valuable to take a few of these ideas presented and scaling those first before taking on some of the other bigger ones as well. But super cool project. Nice. Amazing. Honorable mentions, of course, goes to some of the other projects too. Besides a couple of private entries that asked to be private. Very interesting, you might say. That is interesting. But not info hazardous, just people who wanted them private, and of course, maybe those will turn into startups. Besides those, we had others that might also turn into startups, of course. But aligned agent-based workflows via collaboration and safety protocols. This was a super interesting project showcasing basically a platform where you can orchestrate agents and put them into contexts, and then monitor and experiment in a sandbox with their interactions to see where do they fail and so on and so forth. So this, you could, for example, set up a software engineering team out of agents and then see, okay, with this type of orchestrator, these types of individuals, you click run, what happens, where does it fail, and so on and so forth. Really cool project, and very, very a beautiful, I think, a beautiful demo too in UI-wise. Another one was Velma, so this open world environments for language model agents. This was basically taking some of the sandboxing ideas that you had already as well, and taking them into general environments for language model agents, testing them, and automatically creating new like game-like environments. I don't think they mentioned the use of AI to generate the environments, but I'm sure they would as well. And Guardian AI was the scam protection too. And of course, I think multiple of the other projects were also super good and really, really interesting. I know Nancy's in the audience, their project too, found some really fascinating stuff in terms of the bias of current models, especially some of the smaller ones and some of the open source ones versus some of Anthropic's models too. So super interesting to check out as well. Of course, we couldn't do this without the great collaborators we had involved. So a big thank you goes to Lucas Pedersen for his hack talk, Nick Fitz for his reviewing, Ming Wen for his reviewing as well, Rudolf Linus talk, Faisal Bades's reviewing, Jonas Vollmer, he'll also be giving some reviews later down the line, Finn Metz's reviews too, and co-organization here of some of our work related to getting research into the real world, Archana's work as a community program manager, Natalia's also reviewing many of the projects and continuing to do great work with research, project management in Apart too, and helping out all of the amazing people in our community there. And then Jason, my dear co-director of Apart. So thanks to everyone there. And he's actually now on holiday, so he couldn't judge, unfortunately. Nice. And some of your next steps, now that you've looked at it, I will mention, you probably saw it in the keynote as well from Friday, but there are some opportunities that we might surface along the way for incubation work. We also do have the Apart lab, and within the lab you are supported to really take your idea into publication, what I also mentioned to Artem during his talk as well. But besides this, you have some next steps you can take yourself too. You can submit your ideas and results to the AI Safety Ideas list, aisafetyideas.com. This is a place for a lot of different ideas that was originally developed as an Apart project actually. And you can check out some of the ones that are already there and interact with them, give comments, share your projects there. You can also share your work in our community server. So in general, just posting it in the Explorers help desk, Hack and Chat, or even in your projects and teams ideas page, that forum post you made originally, that has to many degrees replaced some of the AI Safety Ideas setups. So if you post your updates there, that's like super interesting, and people will be able to check it out as well. And in general, joining some more online communities and global events. As I think Artem actually mentioned, there was he was part of a Blue Dot course, but there's a lot of initiatives around the world you can join that will help you take this to the next stage. We're super focused on getting research into the real world, so that's some of the work that happens in our research collective for AI safety as we work on it. There's also a website called readingwhatwecan.com. You can Google it, but Reading What We Can, that has a list, just a reading list of like 20 books on different topics, so sci-fi books, AI safety books, and so on. With some of them also, as you can see here on the right, being papers as well, just to get up to speed and to understand what's going on from the past to the now. I know some of the traditional programs are very much looking at blog posts and papers related to AI safety that are contemporary, or at least within the last 5 to 10 years. But these are also some of the older ones, and taking a look at some of the foundational too. And a big, incentive from our side as well to publish on the alignment forum. This is where everyone in AI safety, they jump to discuss things. So if you think your project is like of research value too, then post it there. Since it's more of a startup hackathon as well, definitely think about what are other types of next steps you can take with these sorts of projects. So that's at least a bunch of different good advice you can take. We do also have a next steps blog post that'll be sent in an email to everyone who was involved. Lastly, I do want to mention that we have a feedback survey, and it helps us a lot if you want to respond to them. You should here also an email, get the link there as well. But you can otherwise go to ais.pub/f, the one on the screen here. That is the easiest link in existence, so hopefully it should be spellable. Otherwise, I can also just type it in the chat here. It should be a relatively quick form, and will give you access to an exclusive list of questions that will really help us to improve the program and make it even better. And same to the winners, will also receive emails with next steps. So you should all receive an email in about 30 minutes to an hour to a bit more. It should be tonight, your time, and then see the next steps there. Of course, stay in touch with us. We'll soon have restarted our newsletter as well, but you can check it out on apparentresearch.com and apparentresearch.com/sprints, sign up to the next ones, and so on and so forth. We have one sprint happening actually already tomorrow. There was a brainstorming session earlier today as well, the Concordia contest. This is with the Cooperative AI Foundation. If you want to get some agents to cooperate, that's the place to do it. You test out your prompts for cooperative agents in scenarios on like a training set of realistic scenarios, and then they are tested on a test set of other scenarios which you don't know anything about, but your prompt has to generalize to those language model agents as well. So really interesting. I think it seems like it'll be like, I don't know. I would wanna get in there and check things out at least. Super interesting to figure out where can we make prompts actually impact the sort of cooperative behavior that happens. But with that said, thank you so much for coming to this lightning talk session for the Technical AI Safety Startups Hackathon. And thank you everyone for joining, for the amazing projects, and for your engagement. It was amazing to have you along. Thank you so much. I'll end the stream, but